Welcome, everybody. This is a live episode of Move, Crush, Count. And with us, our special guest, our good friend, Mr. Sandy Cerami. How you doing, Sandy?
What's happening, buddy? We got some big news to share, yes?
Very big news. So we just launched our next Business Bourbon and Cigar event.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to use this opportunity to not necessarily talk about, we'll talk a little bit about Business Bourbon and Cigars and what it can do. But really, I wanted to use the opportunity to talk about event marketing, developing or forming strong relationships and networking that can come from these type of events, because I think it's a powerful tool for a lot of businesses to use. And I thought we'd kind of take that topic and go from there.
I love it. Let's do it.
All right. So for you, we've done Business Bourbon and Cigars. This will be our third event. And just a real quick cheap plug. This event's going to be down at the Hyatt Coconut Point Resort and Spa down in Bonita Springs, February 1st through the 3rd of next year, 2022.
Correct.
So great setup. Always a fun event. But for you've attended a lot of different events over the years, right? And let's not get into specifics on Business Bourbon and Cigars yet, but let's talk specifically. Why do you attend different events?
Well, first of all, you know that I'm the guy that loves the human interaction piece of it, right? So I always enjoy the opportunity to get together with other like-minded people. We talk about our events specifically. We have really high-level, high-performance, very highly motivated people. The ideas that we share, quite honestly, it's changed the trajectory of our business over at Sandy Cerami & Associates. I know that J&L specifically has benefited, but the best part about it is that everyone that attends benefits. So I love the opportunity to actually mix it up, share ideas. We share a few laughs along the way. I wouldn't be there if we couldn't do that otherwise, but I think that the opportunity to laugh and learn at the same time for me is always, a huge benefit. So
let me ask you a question. You said the word like-minded, right? And I want to talk about that for a little bit, because I think there can be a misconception. I don't want there to be a misunderstanding on that. So we obviously want to surround ourselves with people that make us comfortable being uncomfortable, that can help us expand our comfort zone, things like that, right? Yep. And that doesn't always come from when someone says like-minded, right? You're not trying to when you say that, you're not saying you want to surround yourself with people that have all the same thoughts and ideas as you, as much as, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you're saying is I want to surround myself with like-minded people, meaning we all want to grow exponentially. We all want to get well past our comfort zones, right? Yeah. Yeah. And so we're all willing, and we have a like mind in the sense that we know we can learn from a variety of different opinions and thoughts, and that's where the real breakthroughs come.
To that point, buddy. So yeah, like we when I say like-minded, I'm talking about people that are looking to get better, to improve their game, to share with others generously, to cultivate ideas, to have no fear in putting what may be a way far out there idea out there as a topic of conversation. One of the things that you specifically spoke about when we first started to collaborate together was that you love to take ideas from outside of a particular vertical and put it to work inside of another vertical, right? And it's something I had done subconsciously without actively thinking about it. I would see things that worked elsewhere. As far back as the mid 90s, when I was really just getting my roots into this business on a professional level and having some leadership responsibility and accountability, we were going to places like Restoration Hardware to see what they did in terms of merchandising and marketing. And so you were doing that in a very conscious way, where I was doing it in a semi-conscious way. So we want people that are willing, as you said, to get uncomfortable, to hear different ideas, and to be willing to have the courage to put that to work in their business in a way that they think they'll get the right level of execution.
Sometimes the trick, Sandy, what I've learned is to do things, to make things look like you're doing them in a conscious way.
Right.
A lot of times.
I meant to do that. Exactly. You might have been involved in a conversation I had with Mary earlier today. I meant to do that. I tell her that all the time. I meant to do that.
Well, I remember being on your first podcast and, or my first time being on your podcast. And I said a lot of what we did initially was luck. and you go, oh, buddy, that wasn't luck. A lot of it was luck because there were some things that we did early on from a product thing that was just copying from other industries, bringing them in. But that wasn't something that it just seemed like a smart thing to do.
Sure.
And we lucked into some things that it eventually evolved into. It wasn't necessarily part of our grand plan. But if you don't get out there and you don't do those type of things, I'd rather be lucky than good.
Well, yeah, no, I've heard that plenty of times before. It's the old Sam Snead. The more I practice, the luckier I get. Well, the more I look for ideas and look for opportunities to get better, the luckier I seem to become. That's personally and professionally. I think anybody could say that. But I really, when you had shared that concept with me, it really blew me away because it told me a lot about how you think in terms of your businesses. And I loved it. It was something I started to pay more attention to a lot more acutely than I had in the past, and made conscious decisions to look for opportunities, outside of retail automotive or the businesses that I work in, to try and bring different ideas into different verticals. There's a great book out there, Eric Ruby, a shout out to Eric Ruby, turned me on to a book called When I Stop Talking, You'll Know I'm Dead by Jerry Weintraub. Unfortunately, Jerry passed away a couple of years ago, but he was a world famous Hollywood producer. He was a promoter, concert promoter. And he was very much the same way. A lot of his success was attributed to the fact that he was willing to take risks. He was willing to pay attention to his surroundings and to learn from other folks. And I think that's the roundabout way to answer your question that you originally posed, is why do I want to go out to these events? And that's exactly why. I want to learn from the best out there who have the same type of mentality as we do, that they're willing to listen, learn, and then take risks when they take that back to their businesses.
For me, one of the things that I say when we start our live event is I want everyone to come from a place where anything is possible. Because I think a lot of the things that restrict us when we're trying to come up with a breakthrough, some type of, whether it's a process or a marketing idea, some type of customer retention strategy, or maybe a strategy to gain new business, we restrict ourselves when we start thinking about ideas from a place of, well, that's never been done before, right? Or that might cost too much.
Or worse than that, we tried something like that in the past and it didn't work.
Yeah, you can't do that in this market. All kinds of things that limit us and keep us from growing exponentially or achieving some type of breakthroughs. And breakthroughs are what make people extremely wealthy. So we do have another question that I want to address, and we'll get to very quickly. But hang on a second here. What's the best way to get sales? From Dennis. So, by the way, I'll answer that short, and then we'll come back in more detail. The best way to get more sales is to have great marketing. So I used.
He served you up a softball, buddy.
Yeah, I used to. I used to think it was sales. So when I look at the first 10 to 15 years of our agency with J&L Marketing, we were a sales organization.
Yep.
And I used to think that if you wanted to be highly successful, the first thing you had to focus on was, assuming your processes and your product are good, by the way, your services, whatever you're selling. I used to think that sales was the number one thing. And I still believe that has to be a high priority, because you're not going to succeed much if you don't have that, right? But I do believe marketing is actually more important. And the reason I say that, and I think so, especially now, because with the internet, I think people are bombarded with so much stuff. They don't need to listen to that cold call as much as they used to. They're not answering the phones as much. If you listen to most salespeople now, the hardest part about their job is getting through to a decision maker.
Well, Scott, I'm going to argue that point in just a second, because you and I have had this conversation, and here's my take on it these days. If you have a great sales process or selling team, or are an exceptional selling professional, then marketing is the difference maker for you, because you need prospects to speak to, right? But you could have the greatest marketing in the world, and if your selling team, or you're I almost said the word, sorry, I'm in my Jersey mode. If you have a crappy selling system, a crappy sales team, or you're not a great selling professional, I don't care how many people we run at you, you're not going to achieve maximum results. I think marketing is more important than sales when your sales team is tuned up or your selling skills are sharp. If your selling skills aren't sharp or your team is not tuned up, then it doesn't matter. You're going to miss opportunity, and you're going to probably piss a few people off along the way because they'll feel as though you false advertised ultimately. So I think that marketing is critically important, but when it becomes more important than the sales side of the equation is when your selling team or your selling skills are now at that really highly exceptional level. You got to have that.
So one of the things that Dennis, he's been typing here in the comments or in the chat is, he's asked, I'm having trouble getting a sales process down, selling marketing services, LinkedIn ? PPC, direct mailing ? And I really think the answer to that really depends on the industry you're in and the process. However, the one thing that's constant, regardless of your vertical, regardless of what channels might work for you, is I think you have to have a very clear and simple message as to how you're going to benefit customers. What is it that you do?
Absolutely.
Why should customers pay attention to you? And no matter what channel you're using, if you can't get that down and communicate in a very simple way to where the customer.
So shameless plug, Scott, right? My new platform that, we've basically taken 34 years worth of experience and codified it into something we call the 7 pillars of killer business development. We speak right to that. The first step is creating high value differentiation in terms of creating a brand and your marketing message. And it centers around exactly what you just said. What is the primary and secondary benefits that your prospective clients will experience as a result of doing business with you, and how it impacts them, right? It's very client focused. Going back to what you were saying before, where, years ago, the selling side of the business was more important. It was a completely different environment. It was harder to get your message out into the marketplace unless you had a huge budget, right? Now you don't need a huge budget to get your message in the marketplace. If you've got great messaging and great branding, you can use the tools that are at all of our fingertips these days to drive, the prospects and the leads to your business. Does that make sense?
So, listen, one of the
fire trucks again. Sorry, buddy.
That's just alerting the audience that
the roof is on fire. The roof is on fire here in Wyckoff, New Jersey, baby.
So one of the things that, when I sit here and, let's face it, one of the things, the reason Business Bourbon and Cigars as an event exists, right, is in a weird way, a lot of times the event is at the end of some people or some businesses' funnel.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
In other words, you're selling materials, you're selling books, you're selling whatever it is, all leading to an event. We kind of do it the opposite way, whereas this event almost at least for us, right, at least for J&L Marketing, our agency, and your consulting business, it's the top of the funnel for us.
Mm-hmm.
We're bringing people in, and that's really where I want to get this live episode talking to is on the networking and the relationships that are built throughout that, and then what eventually can come from that, right?
Yeah.
I think anytime you're going to do an event, you've got to make sure priority number one is that you're offering tremendous amount of value. The content has to be something that when attendees come, they're like, man, this was well worth my time, because it's not just the cost of traveling to an event, the lodging or whatever with the hotels and eating out and all. It's the time.
It's the time.
That's correct. The time away from our businesses. And so for your audience, you and I chose an event that was more mastermind focused instead of a bunch of people just getting up there and speaking.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get a lot out. I don't get a lot out of events where I'm sitting in an audience and all I do is listen to a bunch of people speak. I get more out of Clubhouse listening to how people speak than I do anything else, because it's a two-way street, right? I'm asking questions. I'm getting feedback. I've established better relationships through Clubhouse than maybe all of my other social platforms combined, especially in the last 6 to 12 months. And what that makes me feel is, and one of the reasons we wanted to go to this mastermind event, right, is, and have these type of events, is that's the real strength. I've had more business deals done just from the relationships and the network I've built in the last 6 to 12 months than I probably have in the last 5 years combined.
It's amazing. I agree with you 100%. And when we think about the emanation of Business Bourbon and Cigars, we came from a place, you and I both, from our heads and our hearts, where we sat down that first Friday at 5:30 with a bourbon and a cigar. And our one goal was, we've got to come up with some ideas that are going to help our dealer clients. And that's how we started. The entire concept of Business Bourbon and Cigars was from a service-based or a servant-based mentality. How are we going to help these dealers? Now, there was some selfish motivation in there as well, because look, we are business partners with all of our clients as well. Their success is our success, but we really sat down and said, we're not looking to run the meter. We're just looking to figure out how we can help people right now when they need it the most. And so I think that when you talk about the fact that we're going in there looking to generate ideas and generate relationships or create relationships, that speaks right to why we started this in the first place.
So it's funny. Let's talk a little bit about the format, because I think when you hear the word, there are two words that might be overused in marketing, or at least in the event space, probably more than any other two. And it's masterminds and roundtables.
Yeah.
And so our event includes both, right? But it's a true mastermind. And so I've got a personal friend that just chimed in. I'm gonna put this up there because I love it. All right. So
don't worry, Scott. We are quite careful. We don't spill a drop.
Martin Jones has got a great comment. Hands-on events are great. Also, building a web of people who know who you are and what you do is key. It's like having a bunch of free salespeople. Correct. So one of the things,
Scott, can we just talk about those 2 points for just a second? Because the amazing thing for us, and you and I have talked about this a lot, is off of the first two events that we did, we have really created some incredible lasting relationships, people that we did not really know very well, if not at all, prior to our first event last October, that you and I talked to. I know I talked to two handfuls of people from the first two events every week. Every week there's either a text, a phone call, an email, a Zoom meeting. I mean, I'm talking to folks literally every single week, and two handfuls of them off of those first two events. So it's genuine relationships. And by the way, I'm not doing business with every one of them, but ultimately I love the people aspect of it.
So one of the things that you and I first ran into, and this is for anybody that, whether it's a marketing company, you don't always have to do it the way it's always been done.
Mm-hmm.
And so typically with events, you have sponsors. The sponsors then get up, they speak, and the poor people attending have to sit there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes to an hour listening to nothing more but then a glorified pitch, right? And so we called it a mastermind in roundtable format, and we wanted it to be true to that. So, and this can be a tip for anybody thinking about these type of events, or, quite honestly, this can even be done within your own businesses in terms of an innovation type meeting, breakthrough type meeting, to break out of the mold of whatever processes, marketing, sales, whatever it might be for your business. If you want to break through something, here's a structure that could even work within a business. Getting key teammates involved from different departments or different teams together, and
regardless of title.
Correct. And so one of the things that we do at this event, and I think that goes over very well, is we might have a topic that needs to be discussed, and we want to break through, right? And so one of the first ones we did in the last event is inventory, regardless of the vertical you're in right now.
Inventory that we should be discussing?
Yeah, most businesses are having inventory problems, right? In Business Bourbon and Cigars, at least on the dealer end, we got a major inventory problem with car dealers right now, and the supply is virtually non-existent. So on the new side, right? And so the challenge, the mastermind topic was, how do we become best in class? In other words, best in class, how do you guys define that in your market, right? How do we become number one, considered best in class in sales and profit, in spite of the problems with inventory, right? And then we sit there and we turn the tables over, anywhere from 5 to 8 people, all high-powered dealers, general managers, and they then work as if they're working for each table is considered one dealership. and they've got 45 minutes to come through up with breakthroughs and solutions to how they can solve that, how they can sell more cars, make more money, regardless of the inventory situation. And the ideas that came from that were great. One of the things that I want to do differently, Sandy, and this is where I was going with Josh earlier. Some of the comments always just get me off message here a little bit, but they're good. And that is with Josh, you know, a lot of times you can be in an environment like that and you might have a great idea, but you're hesitant to speak up because you're worried about
judging.
You're worried about the judgment from.
That's a stupid question. Why would you ask that?
Yeah. Or what, that idea would never work, right? Why would you think that? We can't do this. And so you don't want we internally have that fear of coming from that. And Josh brought up a good thing. He goes, and that restricts the ideas. That limits the type of innovation that you can come up with.
It inhibits creativity, 100%.
Correct. So he has a solution to that. And I thought it was interesting. And it's one thing that we're going to play around with at this next event. He goes, imagine if Elon Musk was sitting at one of your round tables. Do you think he has the same fear as you when it comes to shouting out ideas?
Right.
And he goes, he doesn't. He has the opposite fear. Someone like a Jobs or an Elon Musk, their fear is coming up and shouting out the average idea, the lame idea, because their reputation are these innovative geniuses. And so if you were to play a role and you had to be Steve Jobs at this round table,
right,
and I had to be Elon Musk. And by the way, it doesn't always have to be good guys. It can be bad guys. It could be Dr. Evil. You could be whoever you wanted to be, right? But you had to deliver answers as if you were them. What type of ideas, what type of suggestions would you come up with?
Right.
And I thought that was an interesting thing. So I think fear can limit creativity one way or the other. So I think if we come from a place where we thought we were being judged for the lame or the normal or the average idea, I think our ideas would be that much stronger. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think, you know, that process, and I recall that from the episode, and it was the one thing that was my big takeaway as I shared with you. I thought it was brilliant because conceptually it takes you out of, you know, the rote, you know, questions that we hear all the time. If you couldn't fail, what would you do? I mean, every time I hear that, I'm just like, oh my God, man, I get it. I know where we're trying to go, but this actually gives you a tool or a mechanism to actually make that a reality. Because even though you tell people, if you couldn't fail, what would you do? People still struggle there. But if you put them in a position where they've got to think like somebody else who they know of and see as an innovator or somebody that is, you know, that doesn't have to have any fear, or you take that, they're able to put on a mask, if you will, and be somebody other than themselves, the inhibition seems to melt away. And I'm really excited for that aspect of the mastermind piece. I think it's going to be awesome. And I'm very curious to hear who each person picks as their avatar, if you will.
Yes, that's a good way to say it. That's exactly what it will be. It'll be an avatar. And if I think back, there was probably I feel like there was a 10-year window in my professional life where in fact, I will go back all the way 30 years when I started J&L Marketing.
Right.
We're in auto, and auto can be very competitive.
A little bit.
Right. Or at least we started off in the auto industry. We've expanded past that now, but for the most part, the majority of our customers and clients, I should say, are still automotive.
Right.
In that, when you come from that industry, you're a very competitive person.
Yes.
And we had a mentality really for the first 20 years, 25 years of, we can handle all this ourselves. We don't need help.
Right.
I don't need that person. I don't need this person. We're gonna crush it no matter what we do, and we're gonna own this stuff, and we're gonna set up the processes and the marketing and do it all ourselves. And I got to tell you, I wish I could go back, and I don't know if everybody wishes they could go back in time, buddy. Right? It started over. But if I could go back in time. Yeah. So I'm asked when I'm on podcast or when people or some of my guests, they ask me, if you could start over, what would you do different? Right. If I could do anything different from day one, I would have looked for strong strategic alliances and realized that a small piece, a small percentage of a much bigger pie is better than a big piece of a small pie, right?
I echo your sentiment, buddy. I think about our relationship, how funny it is that we're as good of friends and as strong collaborators as we are at this point. I was a client of J&L for years and years, right? My dealership was a client of yours for years and years, and you and I never met because Thomas was my guy. I didn't need to know you because everything got taken care of at Thomas's level. And then you had reached out to me. I don't know. It's like 5 years ago now with Jamil to look at the platform you had developed. And I remember ending that conversation, buddy. And you said, I don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to figure out how to do something together. And I said, no, I feel the same way. And then, to our discredit, quite honestly, you and I let like 7 months go by. And then I think you reached back out to me with respect to the podcast. That's what initiated and ignited this incredible relationship, by the way, which I'm beyond thankful for every single day. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't say that.
I wish I could feel the same way. I wish I could feel the same way.
That's right. Trish has told me how much you regret the fact that you reached out to me that day. I can't get rid of this guy. I'm like a bad penny.
So, let's go back to the luck thing. That, to me, that relationship, you and I didn't plan that. We knew that there was a potential there to something much bigger, right? But it's not like we sat down and planned things out. We kind of lucked into that. I heard your podcast, but you know what? You were out there. Mm-hmm. You were making yourself known. You were grabbing attention for what you were doing with your own podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I had already started thinking, I want to do one here with, move, crush, count, the name and all that type of stuff wasn't even a consideration, but I knew I wanted to get into the podcast world. So when I saw yours, that was just luck in the sense that, hey, I'll just reach out to Sandy, pick his brain, and then you invite me on your show.
Yep.
And back then I was doing the exact opposite of what I consult and try to help other people with. Mm-hmm. And that is quit overanalyzing. The best thing you can do is to start, right? But of course,
I think if you remember the conversation we had in February of that year, and you said to me, like, how'd you get started? And I was like, buddy, and this I know you know about me by now because it drives Marvelocity crazy, is that I don't take a whole lot of time, and this is to my detriment as well sometimes, but I don't wait. I don't get ready to get ready. And I said to you, Scott, just press record. Like, go turn the microphone on, turn the camera on, press record, and go. You have something to say, and it's of value. And to your credit, you planned yours out very, very effectively. And I mean, one of my favorite podcasts to listen to, and I put that up there, quite honestly, with Rogan, because I listen to him all the time, PBD. I mean, I listen to some real players, Jay Abraham, who you introduced me to. I didn't even know Jay Abraham was until you had shared him with me. But I listen to those 3 podcasts regularly, along with Andy Frisella and yours. Yeah. Those are the 5 that I listen to on a regular basis to learn.
You bring up Jay Abraham. In the 90s, I would say if there was one marketer that I was buying material from, learning from, it was him more than all others.
Yeah.
And I just absorbed that stuff and applied it instantly. So I love everything that Jay does. So, and really, quite honestly, as technology is advanced, it's just so much easier to take every principle that he's ever taught and it will say 10x. It will do a cheap plug for someone else.
Buddy? Would you agree? Like, there's no more excuses for any of us, right? The minute we sit back and say, how am I going to get that done? I use the hashtag GTS. Google that shit. Go Google it. Figure out how to do it. Find somebody that knows how to do it. Ask them questions. Pick their brain, and then just go do it and make a mess. Make a mess early on. At the end of the day,
you don't have to be great to start. You just have to start somewhere.
Well, I'll finish that quote. It's you have to start to be great. It's Zig Ziglar, and he and I had talked about that yesterday. And this goes to content, right? So I'm watching online. And it's one of the things that I'm so hyper focused on. I always want to put out content that's authentic and original. I don't want to rip off anybody else's content and put my name to it. I think that's probably the worst thing that you can do. Let's jump back on track. Let's talk a little bit more about Business Bourbon and Cigars, buddy, because I think that, you know, what we've got planned for February 1st through the 3rd in 2022 is exciting. It's dynamic. It's different. And I'm not just using those adjectives to try and, get people's attention, although maybe I just am. The fact is, it's true. We've got a lot of fun. We've got a lot of opportunity for networking and meeting, as I said, people that are looking for opportunities to grow their business, grow themselves along the way. We've got some, I'll call it some extracurricular activity that centers around business and cigars. Can you give away the big one on the bourbon side? I know you hesitate for one reason, but we have this potential special guest that's planned for, and a lot of it hinges on, a couple of health factors or factors.
Correct.
COVID.
Yeah. As of now, we do have booked, I will say this, a bourbon Hall of Famer scheduled to come on to the event, do a little book signing during some of our bourbon tastings, things such as that, meet and greet type thing. He's an outstanding. I'll say this. I'll give this hint. He has been on the Move, Crush, Count podcast.
Yes, he has.
All right. There's only two. We've only have two bourbon founders that have ever been on the podcast, and it's not episode number 1 or 2. So that I will allow people to go to move.crush.count, move.crush.count.com, and they can figure that out.
He's what I would consider to be bourbon royalty.
Oh yeah, right? TB or the initials. We'll leave it at that.
I'll have the upper hand before long.
We got Adam Aaron, Sunrise at my place. So I'm glad he chimed in here, and I'm glad he's listening, because he's always, first off, he's attended every one, which we're very thankful for. He's an incredible dealer and operator, even better person.
Thank you. Yep.
And is always willing to share his knowledge and expertise and his experience to help others. Mm-hmm. But he's always been very helpful in terms of this event, helping us form the agenda and the topics as well. And there's a topic that I reached out to him when we were coming up with some of the mastermind topics. And one of the ones that he came up with that we're putting in, and it's going to be done on the Thursday, and that is, how do you grow through acquisition or through raising capital in different relationships or strategic alliances?
Yep.
And I love this for so many reasons, because one, if you're a dealer and you're trying to expand by getting more rooftops or grow your business that way, what are the best paths to do that? What are some of the things that you can do to do that, grow faster than what you're currently doing, right?
Right.
But there's a lot of general managers that are ready to take the next step.
Sure.
Right? They have aspirations to become dealers. And one of the things that's going to be talked about in that mastermind is coming up with action plans for those people as well. It was a very unique topic. I love it. And to his credit, we are going to make sure we bring in some people that are extremely knowledgeable in that area to help form that and sit at these tables as well. So I thought, man, this is a unbelievable thing. All right, I've got to put this comment up. All right.
Although
I don't understand this. Although it's after school, so my daughter must be tuning in. It's on my wife's account.
Miss Sophia, how are you? I love her, buddy.
Hi, Dad. This is Sophia on Mom's account. Is that Sandy Cerami? Yes, it is. That's the one and only.
I love her. She's a doll. She's mini Trisha's mini me for sure.
Oh yeah, no doubt. That's probably a very good thing.
Well, thank God for that, buddy. You kidding?
Yeah.
No question.
All right. So, let's close it out. I appreciate it.
Here's what I'd like to do. Once again, I'm just going to remind anybody that has interest, do not drag your feet, because this thing will sell out quickly and the rooms will not be there. And so we want to see everybody that wants to be there, there.
That's correct. All right. We'll close it out with that. Once again, this is Move, Crush, Count. This is a live version being broadcasted out on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Also on the different groups that we're involved with. Make sure you follow us. on all the different channels. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're everywhere. Any social channel you can think of. Clubhouse, we have a room there as well. So make sure you follow that. Or I should say the club. Not necessarily the room. The room's got a live thing. But we appreciate you all tuning in. We will be back next week. Thank you.